During the record-breaking freeze of 2021, Minnesota authorities discovered something in an abandoned house that still haunts investigators. The Kowalski place had been empty for 15 years, ever since the elderly couple died within days of each other. But during the polar vortex, neighbors reported seeing lights in the windows and hearing voices inside. Not just conversation, but laughter, children playing, the sounds of a family dinner. Officer Janet Mills was first on scene. The front door was frozen shut, ice thick as her fist coating the frame. When they finally broke through with axes and blowtorches, the temperature inside was somehow even colder than the -30 outside. Their breath didn't just fog, it crystallized instantly and fell like snow, creating tiny drifts on the floor with each exhale. In the living room, they found the impossible, a family of 4 sitting around the dinner table sharing a meal. They looked alive at first glance, talking quietly, passing dishes, occasionally laughing. The father was cutting meat that steamed on his plate. The mother was pouring wine that flowed like liquid ruby, and 2 young children were eating soup that seemed to stay warm despite the frigid air. But as Mills approached, she realized they were frozen solid, had been for decades, judging by their clothing and the food on their plates. The ice hadn't just preserved them, it had trapped them in time, keeping them moving in an endless loop of their last meal. Their heads turned to look at her when she entered, mouths still forming words that came out as whispered vapor, hands still reaching for glasses that would never quite be lifted. The children were the worst. A boy and girl, maybe 8 and 10, still wearing pajamas from the 1980s. They smiled at Mills with lips blue from cold, and she could swear she heard them whisper her name, though their mouths barely moved. When she looked closer, she saw that their eyes were filled with ice crystals, but somehow they still tracked her movement across the room. The forensics team found evidence of dozens of families throughout the house, all frozen in domestic scenes that played out in slow motion. Watching television in the living room, their heads turning toward shows that had been off the air for decades. Sleeping in beds upstairs, children curled up with parents who would never wake up, all breathing in perfect synchronization. Playing board games in the basement, dice that rolled continuously but never landed, pieces that moved across boards in patterns that hurt to watch. Dr. Rebecca Santos, the lead investigator, made the most disturbing discovery in the kitchen. The refrigerator was running, humming quietly, its coils glowing red-hot to fight against the supernatural cold. When she opened it, she found photographs instead of food, hundreds of them, all Polaroids, all showing the same thing. Normal family scenes from around the neighborhood, going back decades. But in each photo, standing in the background or reflected in mirrors, were the frozen people from the house. The family from the dining room appeared in birthday parties they'd never attended. The sleeping children from upstairs were visible in wedding photos standing behind the bride and groom. The board game players showed up in Christmas morning pictures, sitting under trees that weren't theirs. They'd been watching. For years, they'd been watching through windows, following families home, appearing in their most precious moments. The photos showed them getting closer over time, first just visible in distant windows, then standing in yards, then right behind their targets, reaching out with frozen hands toward the warmth of living families. Santos found journals throughout the house, all written in the same flowing handwriting, but different pens, different papers, spanning decades. The entries were all the same, detailed observations of neighborhood families, their routines, their relationships, their vulnerabilities. The final entries in each journal were identical. They look so warm. We need to bring them home where they'll be safe from the cold, where they can stay with us forever. The basement revealed the truth. Dozens of sleeping bags and personal belongings from missing persons cases going back to the 1970s. All arranged neatly as if the owners had simply decided to stay for dinner and never left. The walls were covered in family photos, not the ones from the refrigerator, but new ones, showing the frozen families with new members, people who'd gone missing over the years, all sitting together at increasingly crowded dinner tables. The house was demolished, but the lot won't sell. The foundation was filled with concrete, but during every winter storm, real estate agents report the same phenomena. the sound of families gathering, the clink of silverware on plates, children laughing and playing games that never end. Sometimes, passing cars catch glimpses in their headlights, silhouettes in the empty space sitting around invisible tables, forever sharing their last meal in the cold, always with room for one more.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you dare to hear more chilling stories.
The Jameson family disappeared during the worst blizzard Montana had seen in decades. Search and rescue found their car first, buried under 8 feet of snow just 2 miles from their cabin. The engine was still running, fuel gauge on empty, windows fogged from the inside. But the family wasn't there. Footprints led away from the car into the woods, but they were wrong. 4 sets going in, but 7 coming out. The extra tracks were smaller, like children's feet, but they pressed deeper into the snow than should have been possible. Rangers followed the trail for 3 miles through terrain that would have been impossible to navigate in the storm. The tracks led to a clearing where they found something that made seasoned rescue workers vomit in the snow. The Jamesons were arranged in a perfect circle, sitting upright, hands folded in their laps. They'd been dead for at least 2 days, frozen solid, but their eyes were wide open, staring at the center of the circle. Their mouths were stuffed with snow, packed so tightly it had turned to ice. But the most disturbing part was their expressions. They looked terrified, but also confused, like they'd been following someone they trusted. In the center of the circle was a small depression in the snow, perfectly round, about the size of a child. The snow there was stained dark, almost black, and it never melted, even when they brought blowtorches to examine it. The coroner found something impossible in their stomachs: pine needles, bark, and animal bones, all fresh, as if they'd been eating from the forest floor. But their throats showed no signs of struggle, no indication they'd been forced to swallow anything. Local Blackfoot elders refused to discuss the case, but one old woman pulled the lead investigator aside. "You don't follow children in the snow," she whispered, "especially children who aren't cold." The clearing is still there. Rangers avoid it during winter patrols. Some say on clear nights you can still see the circle in the snow, even years later. Others report hearing children laughing in the woods nearby, but when they investigate, they find only those same impossible footprints leading deeper into the forest where no child should ever go.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you dare to hear more chilling stories.
The Whiteout Motel. The Riverside Motel was supposed to be temporary shelter. When the interstate closed during the Christmas Eve blizzard of 2019, dozens of stranded travelers crowded into the rundown establishment. By morning, 12 people were missing. Sarah Chen was one of the survivors. Her testimony to police was consistent but disturbing. The snow started talking around midnight. She'd been in room 7 with her husband when they heard voices outside their window, children singing Christmas carols. Her husband went to look and came back white-faced. "There are kids out there, little kids just standing in the snow singing." They called the front desk, but the line was dead. When they tried to leave their room, the door wouldn't open. Not locked, the metal itself had somehow warped in the cold. Through the window, they watched as other guests emerged from their rooms, walking toward the singing children like sleepwalkers. The kids were wrong. Too pale, too still, voices too perfect. They stood in perfect formation in the parking lot, mouths moving in unison, but their eyes never blinked despite the driving snow. As each adult reached them, the children would smile and gesture toward the woods behind the motel. Sarah watched her husband's face change when he looked at the children. His expression went blank, peaceful, and he started clawing at the warped door with his bare hands until his fingers bled. "I have to go to them," he kept repeating. They're calling me home." By dawn, the children were gone. So were the other guests. Sarah found their rooms empty, but warm. Beds neatly made, personal belongings arranged as if they'd never been touched. The front desk clerk was found frozen to death in the office, but his body was positioned as if he'd been writing. The pen was still in his hand, and on the guest register, written over and over in increasingly erratic handwriting, "The children need playmates. The children need playmates. The children need playmates." The missing guests were never found. But every winter since, when blizzards close the interstate, stranded travelers report the same thing. Children's voices singing in the snow, calling them to come and play forever.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you dare to hear more chilling stories. The first body appeared after the February blizzard, perfectly preserved in the snow behind Miller's elementary school. 8-year-old Katie Morrison lay on her back, arms and legs spread wide, creating a perfect snow angel impression beneath her small form. But Katie had been missing for 3 days, and the snow around her was older than that. Detective Sarah Chen noticed the details that made her stomach turn. Katie's eyes were wide open, staring up at the gray winter sky, but they were filled with ice crystals that sparkled like diamonds. Her mouth was open in what looked like laughter, packed full of fresh snow that had somehow stayed powder white despite being inside her body for days. Most disturbing was her expression. She looked happy, blissful, like she was having the most wonderful dream. The town went into lockdown. Parents kept their children inside, schools closed, but somehow the snow angel maker still found them. The children would simply vanish from their bedrooms in the middle of the night, leaving behind only small puddles of water on their bedroom floors and windows that had been opened from the inside.
Detective Chen started noticing the pattern in the dreams. Every parent of a missing child reported the same thing. Their child had been talking about a snow lady who visited them at night. She would tap on their windows with fingers made of icicles and sing lullabies in a voice like wind through bare branches. "She's so pretty," 6-year-old Emma Reeves told her mother the night before she disappeared. "She has hair made of snow and a dress that's all sparkly white. She says she wants to play with me forever, in a place where it's always winter." Security cameras throughout the town showed impossible footage. Children walking through the streets at 3 a.m. in their pajamas, but their feet never touched the ground. They floated just above the snow, following something the cameras couldn't capture, something that left no footprints, but made the street lamps flicker and die as it passed. Detective Chen started noticing the pattern in the dreams. Every parent of a missing child reported the same thing. Their child had been talking about a snow lady who visited them at night. She would tap on their windows with fingers made of icicles and sing lullabies in a voice like wind through bare branches. "She's so pretty," 6-year-old Emma Reeves told her mother the night before she disappeared. "She has hair made of snow and a dress that's all sparkly white. She says she wants to play with me forever in a place where it's always winter." Security cameras throughout the town showed impossible footage. Children walking through the streets at 3 a.m. in their pajamas, but their feet never touched the ground. They floated just above the snow, following something the cameras couldn't capture, something that left no footprints, but made the street lamps flicker and die as it passed. Chen finally saw her during the next blizzard. A woman made entirely of snow and ice, beautiful and terrible, gliding through the storm like she was part of it. Her face was perfect, carved from pristine white snow, but her eyes were hollow black voids that seemed to draw in all the light around them. When she smiled, her mouth opened to reveal not teeth, but rows of sharp icicles.
The snow lady moved from house to house, her icy fingers tapping against windows, her voice calling to the children inside. "Come play," she whispered. "Come make angels with me. The snow is so soft, so warm. You'll never be cold again." Chen watched in horror as 7-year-old Michael Torres unlocked his bedroom window and climbed out into the blizzard. His parents were asleep 2 rooms away, never hearing their son leave. Michael's face was blank with joy as he followed the snow lady into the storm, his small body already beginning to turn translucent in the swirling snow.
She found them all the next morning in Riverside Park, 13 children arranged in a perfect circle, all making snow angels. But they weren't dead this time. They were still moving, still alive, but changed. Their skin had turned the color of fresh snow, their hair white as ice. When they looked at Chen, their eyes were solid black, reflecting nothing. "We're playing forever now," they said in unison, their voices like wind chimes in a winter breeze. "The snow lady taught us how to be angels, real angels. We don't need to go home anymore. We don't need to be warm anymore." The snow lady stood in the center of the circle, towering over the children like a beautiful ice sculpture. She looked at Chen with those horrible, empty eyes and smiled. "Would you like to play too?" she asked. "I have so much love to give, so many children to keep safe from the hurt of growing up." Chen tried to run, but the snow beneath her feet had turned to ice. She could feel the cold seeping into her bones, could see her breath coming out in great white clouds that seemed to hang in the air like frozen words. "Don't worry," the snow lady said, reaching out with fingers like icicle daggers. "It only hurts for a moment. Then you'll be perfect forever, just like them." The children began to laugh, a sound like breaking glass, as the snow lady's touch turned Chen's blood to ice water. As consciousness faded, she could hear them singing in their crystalline voices, "Snow angels, playing in the white. Snow angels, sleeping through the night." The storm cleared, searchers found 14 bodies in the park, all making perfect snow angels. Detective Chen lay among them, her badge glinting in the morning sun, her mouth filled with snow and her eyes sparkling with ice. But sometimes, on very quiet winter nights, people report seeing figures in the park. A tall woman made of snow surrounded by children, all of them dancing in the eternal winter of their frozen dreams.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out, so subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.